going.
So I am obviously not George. Unless there's been some strange coincidence and I'm giving a talk and mess up the schedule. But I don't think that's the case. My name is Danielle Nevels, and I have the privilege of introducing George to you all today, who is not just a colleague to me, but also a friend. And before I introduce him, I'm going to tell you why it is that he is a friend who I admire. So when I first met George, we started talking about food. Now, anybody that knows me knows that I'm a foodie. And so George, of course, is like, oh yeah, I'm a foodie too. So have you been to this place? I'm like, no, I haven't. What about this place? No, I haven't been there either. Okay, I know you've been to this place. Haven't been there either. He was starting to make me question my foodie. And then I'm like, well, how long have you been in Indianapolis? He says, 4 months. I said, okay, 4 months. So that was when I first learned how intentional George is about everything, from coming to Indianapolis and being intentional about getting to know the city and exploring it and truly making it his home, even though he has very strong Houston pride. So fast forward a few months, and I noticed George's positive attitude. This guy is always happy, always smiling. No one is that happy but George. And so George one day asked me if I could help him because Lilly had a blog. I said, sure, George. We set up a meeting. And instead of showing up live to the meeting, he calls me. And this was the first time I heard something in George's voice I'd never heard before. And it was disappointment and frustration. And when I asked what was wrong, he said that over the weekend, he was playing basketball. I guess he thought he was Michael Jordan. And it was just a few short days after his birthday, and he tore his Achilles. And he was so disappointed in himself, not even that he injured himself, but because he had intentionally set up several meetings that week that he was worried he was going to have to miss. He had some upcoming opportunities coming up that he wanted to take advantage of. And for George, one time for the one time means taking advantage of every single opportunity. And so it was there that I learned that for George, one time for the one time isn't just something he puts on his social media accounts. I know we've all seen it, and we're like, what does that even mean? But that was when I learned that it actually had meaning and purpose. So I'd like to invite you to learn a little more about George as I have on this road to TED. Thank you.
One time for the one time. One time for the one time. One time for the one time. It's a quote, a phrase, a hashtag, something of purpose that means to take advantage of the opportunity of a lifetime and the lifetime of that opportunity. If you paid attention to the slideshow, that was my story. You saw the cute little baby picture? Yeah, that's What about the football player? Yeah, I still got it. Yeah, that's me. What about the bald-headed guy hopping around? That's just my crap. But what if I wasn't intentional? What if I told you that I turned down football scholarships to pursue pharmacy, only to not get in the first time I applied? Or what if I told you after working my butt off to get in, I failed chemistry twice, and I almost got kicked out of pharmacy? Or what if I told you after I hopped over all those hurdles, I was the first Texas Southern University pharmacy student to get into both the FDA and Bristol Myers Squibb, and I still failed to get into a fellowship program the first time. Yeah, that was me too. I failed. failed over and over again. But it was in that failure that I found opportunities. But it wasn't enough just to find those opportunities. I had to take advantage of it. I also figured out that I couldn't do it all by myself. I needed help. It was important to me to share the stage with Danielle, not just because we have a lack of African American women who are senior leaders in this country. Nah, I wouldn't do that. Not just because she is the chairwoman of the newest and fastest growing employee resource, ECP. Who are those guys? Why did I do that? I had the privilege of knowing Danielle when she was in corporate affairs, and she was the person responsible for turning our visiting scientist brochures from this to this. It was the first step in our class's vision from not only being the best fellowship program in the Midwest, but we wanted to be the best program in the nation. I could have played drums by myself. I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm good. But it was important to me to share the stage with Joyce. And not just because we have a lack or a gap in the targeted recruiting of HBCUs like Texas Southern University. I wanted to ensure that when Joyce and I go back to our schools in Houston and we talk to fellow TSU students, that we're able to tell them that both of us were the first TSU alums to be on the TEDxLilly stage. And that Eli Lilly gave us the privilege, the platform, and the power to do so. Now I'm wearing a bow tie like I do every Thursday. Every single Thursday. Not just because I want to, but I think there's a gap in knowledge of who even started this. It wasn't me. It's an arrow there, just in case you missed it. But I wanted to be a first follower and make sure to help Stevan start a movement. You see, he was the guy that started Bowtie Thursdays to bridge the gap between the old school and the new school, between corporate affairs and marketing, between his class and my class. And if you look around, there are a couple of more people wearing bow ties trying to bridge that gap. There's one person in particular I want you to pay attention to. Now, I know what you're thinking. This isn't Justin Timberlake. This is my boss. You know, Bob Redman. So I'm going to take this time on the TEDx stage, take the opportunity of a lifetime to tell you a little bit more about Bob. You see, Bob, my boss, he's very intentional. I still remember meeting him the first time. He was so cool, calm, and collected, you know, very genuine, looked me in my eye, asked me about myself, asked me about my goals, and at that time, I wanted to be the first visiting scientist fellow to go straight from the fellowship to the LMA, the Lilly Marketing Academy. Still cool? All right. Well, I have an opportunity for you here if you don't get in, and if you do get in, I'll give you the opportunity to make this your first rotation. I was like, wow, that's powerful. What do you see? Guess what? Yeah, I failed again. But I decided to take Bob up on his offer and take him up on the opportunity to be his associate. Be intentional. One time for the one time. Osazua George Michael Oakman was born January 21st in Dallas, Texas, to pastors Michael and Christy Oakman. My dad came from Nigeria to the United States on a scholarship to Georgetown University. I was the firstborn, so he named me George, after the first president of the United States. Didn't hurt that he went to Georgetown. But my mom likes to tell the story a little differently. She said, we named you George after King George, and we named you Osazua after the doctor that took care of our whole family back in Nigeria. I think I like that story a little bit better. And now you see why my mom was for it. Being the firstborn in my family, I had all the presents, all the attention. The world was mine. All hail, baby King George. Then John came along and messed that all up. Took away my attention, took away my mom, and the infamous trend of dressing alike started. That didn't stop with JJ being born. I don't know what I'm looking at, and I really don't know what John is doing. Is he an uncle right there? JJ likes to point out that he's the flyest one in this picture.
Yeah. That's fine.
Then we grew up. We figured out how to show our personalities, how to look the same and different at the exact same time. Ask John what time it is. to me means more than just clothes or personalities. It's about me being intentional about my culture, my Nigerian culture, my Nigerian heritage. Because frankly, growing up, I hated it, and I hated my first name. It's funny because Osazua means God's gift of wealth. My parents like to remind me it's not wealth of money. It's what they pray that I have every single day. A wealth of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. My mom, she's the first of 12. Yeah, I didn't stutter. 12. She's the first of 12. And she always likes to remind me, Osazua! What are you doing? I had 11 under me. Why are you fighting your brothers? Why are you not being a good example to them? Wait until your daddy gets home. And for those of you who didn't understand my Nigerian accent, it means George. Why are you not practicing servant leadership? Why are you not being an example to your brothers? Wait until your father gets home. You're gonna get it. Wait there, buddy. I didn't understand the concept of servant leadership until I went home and met my grandparents for the first time. This was before FaceTime, before iPhone, before all of that stuff, so I only got to see them in pictures and talk to them for the 12 seconds in between me playing video games and wish them happy birthday or whatever it was at the time. It was the summer before my senior year, and summers were important because I was an athlete, and that's when we trained in August. And my senior year was my last opportunity to get as much scholarships as I could. But something told me to go. Again, it could have been my father trying to pull me, but we're gonna go with something. And when I got there, it was as if Prince Hakeem from Coming to America had touched me. Oh my gosh, it's really him. We had a party for a whole weekend. I was like, well, Mom, where's this in America? She said, you can stay here if you want. But my grandfather, he was the chief of our tribe back home. It's kind of like an illuminator here. And my grandmother really never had to lift a finger. But at that time, she promised to cook breakfast for me every single morning. And that was important because she could cook better than my mom. And that's pretty hard to do. My grandfather was in his 90s and he was already blind, so he had handlers. And so every morning, my grandmother and my grandfather, they would take me to my room and just pour into me, pour knowledge, tell me about my culture, tell me about why I was named, who I was, all the stories that my mom never told me. But it was great, it was awesome. And so I got back after that, after football season, after about a month, and had a great season. And about a month after the season, my grandfather passed. A couple months after that, my grandmother passed. And it was then that I knew the privilege that I had to see them, and the privilege I wouldn't have had if I didn't take advantage of that opportunity. I understood why my mom and dad made me go that summer. There was one pearl of wisdom in relation to my brothers that I really, really remember. And they were like, George, you are the firstborn of the firstborn of the family for a reason. You are the example. Your brothers cannot be what they cannot see. It's important that when you fail, you get up. It's important to be a great example to them. And I could proudly say that my brothers are now the example of me. My brother John in the white and tan, he's the first to graduate twice, the first to be married, the first to buy a house, the first to have kids. Whenever I do any of those for the first time, that's who I'm going to. He's now the senior leader of a commercial real estate group in Houston, Texas. My brother JJ, in the blue and black, just graduated last year, and as of last month, just got accepted to a post-bac program on the East Coast, en route to Mexico. So I'm the slacker of the family with one PharmD degree. And so I have to intentionally pursue my MBA. I'm not going to have much to offer these guys. I'm grateful I didn't get into the fellowship program on the first try. I didn't know of or apply to the Visiting Scientist Fellowship Program the first time. And I wouldn't be honored to be a part of this great class. The second time around when I applied to every single program in the nation. And I was lucky enough to get into my top 4. Students nowadays ask me, why did you turn down New York, New Jersey, Boston, and even North Carolina for Indianapolis? And I tell them what my mentor told me. Go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. You see, I didn't choose the city. I chose to take advantage of the opportunities. And there's so much opportunities here at Eli Lilly and here in Indianapolis. During our program, we had the privilege of doing presentations on whatever we wanted, whatever we were passionate about. We also, with a partner, got to learn about each other, our inner workings, what worked well, what didn't. And it was important because we learned about our differences. As you can see, we were different genders, different ages. Some of us were married, some of us had kids. It was important to know those differences. We also worked in different parts of the business, some in commercial, some medical, some in regulatory. That's not much different than what I see out here, or those that are listening or tuning in online. We were intentional about our environment. We were intentional. We did presentations on improv, on meditation, and of course, we had to do something on social media. You know what's funny? This talk has never been about me. It's about we. What if we were intentional with our environment right here? What if we're intentional about bridging those gaps? What if we were intentional about bridging the gap between men and women? Bridging the gap between black and white? Bridging the gap between old school or new school? Also bridging the gap between failures and successes. What if we took what we found here, took what we found here, took what we found here, and made it better and better? We have the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. The privilege, the platform, and the power. We have all we need here to bridge those gaps. Be intentional. One time for the one time.